1 Peter chapter 4, verses 1 to 5, reading. Forasmuch then as Christ hath suffered for us in the flesh, arm yourselves likewise with the same mind. For he that has suffered in the flesh hath ceased from sin, that he no longer should live the rest of his time in the flesh to the lusts of men, but to the will of God. For the time past of our life may suffice us to have wrought the will of the Gentiles, when we walked in lasciviousness, lust, excess of wine, revellings, banquetings, and abominable idolatries, wherein they think it strange that ye run not with them to the same excess of riot, speaking evil of you, who shall give account to him that is ready to judge the quick and the dead. For this cause, verse 6 as well, for this cause was the gospel preached also to them that are dead, that they might be judged according to men in the flesh, but live according to God in the Spirit. May God bless the reading of His word. Let us all turn to God in prayer. Eternal God, our gracious, loving Heavenly Father, we thank you for this great privilege to gather in thy house at the end of the week to study your word. Lord, we thank you for the freedom of worship. We thank you for every opportunity to learn so that we may know how to live our lives. And even now, we pray that you help us to pay attention, to learn, so that we truly live as strangers and pilgrims on earth, not making this world our home, and Lord, failing you as a result. We do pray that you cleanse us and wash us of all our sins. Lord, we pray that you be merciful, for we know we must have sinned against you in so many ways. Lord, show to us that we may repent even as we understand our lives in the light of your word. Be with us tonight, Lord. Remove every distracting thought. Be with the Youth 180 group. Feed thy children in thy house tonight. We ask, Lord, because we are a needy people. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Now, the last time we gathered, we saw that from this passage there were a list of things which God told through Peter how the children of God ought to live on earth, right? A list of things. And we were covering the first two, which is mortification of sin and living unto God, all right? That is covered from verses 1 to 6. There are actually a list of 7 things. After that, there's sobriety, right? Sobriety, which we see in chapter 4, verse 7. Be therefore sober. And then in prayer, all right, there's this 4th thing that the stranger and pilgrim need to be aware of and make sure it is in our life, prayer. And then the next one is charity, all right, in verse 8. And then hospitality, and then the best use of our talent. So all these found in chapter 4, verses 1 to 11, all right? So don't lose sight of that. Now Peter, used by God, turns the Christians' attention to how we should live on earth as strangers and pilgrims, after covering about being in submission to all authorities. Now, mortification of sin and living to the will of God. Now we begin to see in chapter 4. God says that in our past life, before we were saved, we were people that lived according to the flesh. You will notice that he talks about the flesh here, and then in chapter 4, verse 6, he talks about living according to God in the Spirit. The flesh and the Spirit. This is a warning that the Christian must not go back to our old life, the life of the flesh. All right, not saying that we don't live in the flesh, we die, but living according to the flesh means the desires the sinful desires of whatever your flesh wants, whatever the world tempts you with, you just say, I'll go with it. So God says, now in the past, look at verse 2, chapter 4, verse 2. He said that he no longer should live the rest of his time in the flesh to the lust of men, but to the will of God. Now the Christian must learn then once and for all, no longer, right? The key phrase, that he no longer should live. It means that the Christian can actually live according to the flesh. Yes, we are saved, but we may ignore how we ought to live. So the reminder is you must no longer. Have you made up your mind? That was what we covered the last time. There must be this resolution in the heart of the Christian once and for all. Why do we not grow? Why do we find the Christian life miserable? Because we have not made up our mind to live, look at verse 2, to live to the will of God, the will of God. His preceptive will, His personal will for us. We must resign and say, Lord, this is how from now onwards. My old man is dead. I listen to him no more. How I live as a single, how I live as a father, a mother, a young person, I have decided is no longer to listen to my flesh. The flesh will keep calling. Remember that. Paul mentioned about that in Romans. Even the great apostle Paul struggled with the flesh. Have you decided? Have you made up your mind? If you wonder why you still have many struggles, it's because you have not said to yourself, no longer, Lord, no longer to linger, no longer to linger in this world. Now, then we talk about, then now we come to verses 3 and 4, right? So this mortification of the flesh, no longer live to the flesh, and living to the will of God. Living to God is living to the will of God. Now, how does it look like? Now the Apostle Peter describes. Then we have to ask ourselves, well, am I aware of this lust of the flesh around me? So question number 1, I ask, what are some sins described that will continue to be around us? Now, Peter listed some of them, not for fun, to warn the Christian that though we are saved, these things are very prevalent around us to tempt us, to pressurize us. What are some of them? Now, let's look at them. Chapter 4. Now, the first thing, he said, when we walked in lasciviousness, lust, excess of wine, revelings, banqueting, and abominable idolatries. Now, Christian, you must be aware and sensitive to these things around you. Otherwise, you may be part of it after being saved, and you don't even realize it at work, in school, among your relatives. What are they? To be careful of. Now, lasciviousness. What is lasciviousness? Now, lasciviousness basically generally describes uncontrolled lust. Uncontrolled. Excesses. It talks about it being so uncontrolled that it is shameless. All right? So lasciviousness has these very shameless behaviors. Now it means to live without sense of moral restraint. You do not think or care about what is morally right, what is decent, what is proper. Now we live in a time where excesses or sinful ways are so excessive that even the Christian are no longer sensitive to it. We laugh at dirty jokes. I hope none of you do that. After salvation, we must be very sensitive to that. Now, sometimes our colleagues, they make certain remarks that have dual meanings. We must be careful. We buy things, we wear things that in the eyes of God is immodest, ungodly. Yet we no longer blink an eye. So Peter warns the believer, after their salvation, they must be sensitive to it. Now, what else about lasciviousness? Now, this is especially related to sexual sins, all right? Not limited to, but often used in scriptures to refer to that. Now, that is why when you and I get onto the internet, look at advertisements on televisions or billboard, the world is in such a state of immodesty and immorality. The Christian must be very careful. Otherwise, you become insensitive to it and you take in these things without even realizing that is unclean, filthy. Now we end up dressing our children in the ways the world dressed them. We buy them clothes that are lascivious without even thinking. Parents, be very aware of that. All right? You see other children going out, young toddlers even, in very lascivious, immoral dressing. Do not be so insensitive to it that you just buy those clothes and put them on for the children. Because every child dresses like that. Every teen dresses like that. You don't think about it anymore. Be very careful. Lasciviousness. Now, but it also have this meaning of, in general, across life. You heard of the phrase, let your hair down. Let your hair down. But basically it's just loosen up. All right? Don't be so stiff and strict about your life, in morality, in desires for things. Let your hair down once in a while. Loosen up. And the Christian begins to think that, yeah, what's wrong? We don't have to be such stuffy people. Right? So there is lasciviousness. Lasciviousness. We'll come to some examples afterwards, but think about your life when you go to work. On certain occasions, certain parties, certain company celebrations, they say, everyone let their hair down. So you also feel, let my hair down a little bit. Maybe after I ask you, what are some of those occasions where you feel that as a teenager, as a young adult, all right? No teenagers here, I guess. As a young adult, it's okay to let your hair down. Now, next one, lust. All right, what are lusts? It's basically cravings, longings, desires, all right? Strong ones. Of course, stemming from lasciviousness, all right? Cravings. Lusting after things. Discontented with what God has ordained for your life. Now, some of the lust is really wanting more and more and more. It happened in those days. It is prevalent in our days. Just never enough. You think of how the world advertises all the shopping, all the online shopping. Great competition between different websites. You have Catch, you have Amazon, you have, I don't know what else, right? Taobao, right? Endless. Always appealing to our lust. Never stop following the latest fashion, the latest trends, the latest hairstyles, the latest dressings, the latest handbags, the latest whatever. Now, the Christian used to be following those lusts. But God says after salvation, do no longer live the rest of his time in the flesh to the lusts of men, in verse 2. And he describes some of them in verse 3. Are we, after salvation, still lusting after things? Or are we people that are contented? Now, next one, revelings, all right? Revelings. What are revelings? Now, this is basically just having a party time, enjoying, just having fun, always having a party, enjoying going out, meeting up, having gatherings, partying, eating, drinking, which he will cover next. Now, and this very often this word refers to, in those days, night activities, all right? So they finish some gatherings, and then they continue late into the night, either on the streets or going from houses to houses. Don't sleep, just keep staying awake. Revelings, just mindless. I think that's a key word. Revelings are it's just for fun. Mindless. Don't think, just do whatever comes to what you feel like doing, right? Being a joker and all that, just partying. Extended partying, this is what it means. Now we have in the United States, they have every year certain revelings on the streets, Mardi Gras and all that, where people will come out displaying floats, immodestly dressed, dancing, drinking, all sorts of partying on the street. Now what about today? For us, young people, do you have friends, colleagues that organize movie nights? Movie nights. Just sit down and watch movie after movies late into the night. Colleagues may organize that. They continue to live like that. If you notice, many of these gaming centers, they open 24 hours. Now, if you used to be someone who loved to go to all these places, God says these are the revelings that the Christian no longer wastes his time on, no longer have his flesh interested in these things anymore. Revelings. Well, housewives, what about your friends? Hey, let's just gather for high tea, all right? Always asking for high tea, going out for high tea gatherings. Then just sit down and chat. Go on and on, just mindlessly about all sorts of gossips and so on. These are examples of revelings. God says the Christian no longer engages in this thing, the waste of time and God's resources, all right? And parents, be careful of revelings. If your children are somehow increasingly involved in nocturnal, late night activities, be cautious. God says this is how the world tend to live. Somehow they're just attracted to darkness, doing things late at night. That is when many fall into sin. Now, that is one of the reasons why we are very, very reluctant to organize late night activities. It's different if we have watch night service. You're supposed to watch through the night, pray till midnight. And yes, we stay back a while to watch fireworks. That's different. But sometimes you hear of church, which I do not understand, organize overnight cycling. Why? What for? Overnight hiking. Why must it be night? So there is just this desire to have things at night. You say, Pastor, then we shouldn't have gone to look for possums. But it is not something that you do regularly, that you like to do, right? Even those, we want to make sure that it finishes quickly, people go back, not too late at night. So be careful of that. There is revelings. Now, next one, banquetings. What are banquetings? Well, it is activities mainly concerning eating and drinking, again, having parties, all right? Banquetings. Now, if you're someone, I think it's actually the Australian culture, who love to entertain. We are not talking about where God says, well, Christians should be hospitable, all right? We're going to study later on, hospitable to others. We are not talking about that. This is just plain, simply love to cook, love to entertain. People come. Sometimes in these parties, you don't even know who invites who. Just having gatherings, eating, major cooking. It's basically what the world calls the Epicurean and hedonistic lifestyle, all right? Epicurean. Now, the Epicurean hedonistic lifestyle generally, what it believes is pleasure is the chief good in life, all right? Pleasure is the chief good in life. So, banquetings, especially the pleasure of eating. I know there's some difference between Epicureanism and hedonism, but basically is pleasure in life. No pain. Avoid pain, avoid trouble, avoid thinking, just have an easy life. All right? So many of these banquetings are just that, just gathering to eat. That's all. Now, if you love to cook, it's a good thing. You love to bake, that's a good thing. But do not get sucked into this banqueting lifestyle. All right? Some people of the world, every week, they must have a major party. All right? Well, when I was a teenager, very often the revelings and the banquetings, we call them functions. I don't know whether they call it now that still, but some of you can relate to it. Is there any function this week? Which function in which house? Well, functions means, well, dark, turn off the lights in the house, just rock music in the background, people just hanging around, eating, drinking, dancing, banqueting and revelings, all right, together. So be careful of that. Say, we won't involve, we don't get involved in that. Now, there are sometimes people who organize eating trips, banqueting trips. The trips is just simply to drive somewhere and then to certain restaurants and eat, and the next restaurant, and then eat, and the next restaurant. So the whole holiday among Christians is just for eating. Well, common one in Singapore is durian holidays, all right? Where they just travel to Malaysia from plantation to plantation, all right, for a few days, just eating durians. Now, God says these are the banquetings, and sometimes church organize such things. Now you begin to realize, God says this is how you used to live. Well, you spend money this way, you spend time this way, and that is what you think about your belly. Just filling your senses with all these things. Some Christians, they organize, they say, well, we don't go out partying with these people, but let's go to these high-end hotels, eat this very high-end food, very ridiculously priced, buffets and all that, banquetings. God says we used to live like that. God is not against eating. God is not against having a good meal, all right? The Lord Jesus himself cooked for his disciples. Can you imagine how wonderful that barbecue fish was? God is not against it, but this is just mindless banquetings, all right? We should be hospitable, but we are not talking about banquetings. Now you think about this celebrity chef thing. Is it celebrity chef? Some chef competition thing? The obsession with lust of food and banquetings, and they describe how this tastes, how that tastes. Well, if this there, yeah, eat it. But we should not be so obsessed with food to the point where you spend a good part of your week, your day, just making food to taste as special as possible. Of course, mothers, you have to cook. You're busy the whole day preparing, cooking. But this is talking about a lust, all right? A lust for food. Now, the next one, abominable idolatries. Abominable idolatries. Well, it just summarizes all. Well, of course, then they had many temple idols. But we must remember, whenever we talk about idolatries, it is not the idol in itself, all right? They don't look at it and say, oh, we love the nose, we love the arms, the legs, and the hair of the idol. They are not worshipping the idol's looks. Idolatry is always about what the idol represents, what the idol stands for, right? So they worship idols that is very abominable. Some of them related to all sorts of sexual fornication. So it's the thing behind it. Some worship idols that has to do with riches, all right, lust. Some worship idols that is basically give me a good life, a peaceful life. Lots of food. Then you have the revelings, the banquetings. So Peter just summarizes all this. They worship these idols. They go to different kind of idols, wishing for different kinds of lusts. Some lascivious, some lustful, some reveling, some banqueting, to satisfy their flesh. So he said, Christians, you have stopped going to temples to worship these idols. But these lusts are still very much practiced around you, and you must be careful. You must beware. Then he moves. So that is one. Now, after talking about all these things that will be around you, so mothers, you will have all these people who still lust after all these things, and after you get saved, they are still around you. You go to school, you drop off your children, and then all the mothers may have this kind of lust in their life. Fathers, when you go to work, in the workplace, you have these people, lascivious, lustful, partiers. I think I missed that one. Excess of wine, all right? Excess of wine, that is basically drinking. This word excess of wine is not drinking a lot, because it's just one word, all right? Excess of wine in Greek is just one word. That is basically involvement in wine. Involvement in wine. Wine tasting. So don't think this excess of wine, this excess is a different word from the word excess in verse 4. Verse 4, the excess means in basically having much of it, all right? Preoccupied with it. But this excess of wine is involvement in wine. Don't just think it's drunkenness. Wine tasting, very seen as something very classy today, right? In many countries, right? When I was younger, drinking alcoholic beverages is often linked to people who are low class, uneducated, and drunkards and all that. But slowly, wine is slowly promoted. Alcoholic beverages are promoted to something that is classy, all right? So now, in many countries, working people, young people, they feel that if they have a glass of wine, it's very classy. So God says, these people will surround you still. At work, among relatives, it's the same. After you are saved, your relatives are not. It could be even your own brethren, your own family members. They have these things. Now then Peter says the next thing in verse 4. Wherein they think it strange that ye run not with them to the same excess of riot, speaking evil of you. Now, the next thing happens. Now after warning the Christian, these people will be around you. Now then he says, these people will think it strange that you don't run with them. Now, thus far, Peter has spoken about their physical tribulations, persecutions. But now, Peter turns his attention to their emotional persecutions, the emotional pressure they will be under, all right? In their hearts, in their minds, the feelings, what they will go through. A different kind. No longer the kind that is physically beating you up, killing you, burning your bodies, torturing you. But now he deals with another kind of persecution that the Christian will face. They think it's strange that you run not with them. Now, question number 2, how will the world around us view us and treat us and the church when we avoid all these lusts in our lives? The Christian's life changes, and they say, these things are no longer present. I do not want to pursue them anymore. I do not want to have anything to do with them. Then you go to work and you face these people. Then you, as a mother among friends, you face these people. Then as a single, whether it's work or among relatives, or friends, you face these people. How will the world around us view us and treat us? Well, number one, they will think you strange. Strange. Now, what does it mean? What does it mean? It means they will not understand you. But this not understand you is not just simply, I don't understand you, but I respect you. No, it's a different kind of, it includes that, but look at how he says. In verse 4, speaking evil of you. Two things. They will think you strange, and they will speak evil of you. We learn one thing at a time. Now, think you strange means they will think, well, you used to do these things with us. You used to talk about these things. You used to spend your money this way. You used to go out on these parties with us. Now, they find it shocking, surprise. Right? So this one has to do with, now they don't understand, but it's to the point where they're actually quite shocked that you're like that. You used to be their companions. Now then, they even begin to think, right? So they find you strange. They think in their hearts about you. They think that with this religion, you have become a superstitious person, right? Now, have you, after you got saved, and they say, you mean you believe in God, gods, invisible, not seen, not scientific? Now, they will begin to view you as strange. Not only that, they will think that you are foolish. They don't understand. When they think you're strange means you are foolish. They may be nice, they don't say it directly, but some may say it directly. Such a fool to believe in such things. You know, once someone shared, he and the wife was at a gathering, this Christian couple, and then the friend said, talked about things, so, well, I think the wife tried to share the gospel, and then the friend, the stranger said, oh, you mean you believe in this foolish concept of God? I hope you don't mind me saying that. And then the wife said, well, as long as you don't mind me saying that, God says that the fool have said in his heart, there is no God. But that's how they will think. It's foolish. Now, not only that, they will think that you are they will think, oh, this person is crazy, mad. So these are your friends. These can be your relatives, can be your own father and mother or your siblings after you get saved, and they think this is foolish, right? Like you heard at camp, when the gospel was preached at the dining table, don't ever bring this thing up ever again, right? They think you are mad. Now, in other words, the Christian will begin to experience backlash for your faith, for believing in God. Now, not only Peter warns, don't play with those things that you use to lust after anymore. Let them have nothing to do with your life anymore. He also warns that as a result of that, you will feel backlash. Maybe you drop your child off and then you drive and say, that woman, she gave me a tract. These crazy people believe in God. Maybe you see them snigger, Maybe at work as well, maybe as a single. You give out tracts and then they say, this person won't marry unbelievers. They snigger. Actually, this does happen to Christians. Someone actually shared, say, Pastor, My colleagues keep trying to matchmake me. And then they say, and I keep turning down all these meetings. And then they say, why are you so foolish? This Christian faith, why must you marry Christians? Right? So they think you're strange. He said, my friend, he's a doctor or whatever profession. He's rich. Actually, this person actually said, this friend of mine has a few properties. He's such a catch. Why aren't you willing to meet up with him? They think you're strange. And every time they meet you, they just mock at you. These people are silly. Maybe as parents, you make certain decisions for your child as well. They cannot understand those decisions, and they say, so odd, so foolish. But we see some examples afterwards. We just establish this first. Now when he says, think it strange, that ye run not with them, to the same excess of right, you run not with them. Now Peter said that the Christian should no longer live the rest of his time in the flesh. How you spend your time. And he said you don't run with them anymore. Means you don't participate in those activities. When they call you out for those meetings, you say, I'm not joining you all. Don't run with them. Or when you are with them, they say, let's do this. And you say, I don't drink. Or I don't drink alcoholic beverages anymore. Or I don't gamble anymore. You don't do things with them, in other words. Run with them means being part of them, all right? Doing things with them. Whether it's joining activities, whether it's going somewhere, or whether it's certain conversations. You don't run with them anymore. So that's one. How will they view us? How will they treat us? Is they will speak evil of you. That's how they will treat you. Now, speaking evil of you. This word speaking evil is just one Greek word as well. And you'll be surprised what word this is. We just studied at prayer meeting. It's the word blaspheme. They will blaspheme you. All right? Now remember what we said blaspheme is? Slander, mock, ridicule, character assassinate, said to injure. So that is what it means, blaspheme. We studied that. So they will blaspheme you. In other words, they will criticize you. They will malign you. They will say things, or rather they will call you names. All right? Now one name I think that the Christian must get used to is, you are intolerant. You are an intolerant person. Means we don't tolerate others. Others have their own lifestyle. Others have their own choices. Others have their own beliefs. And they say, you are intolerant. You believe that only your God can save. How can you say such a thing to me? I think that's one of the things that people often are afraid to share the gospel. All right? You're an intolerant person. You must think well of everybody. Accept all beliefs. So they will call you names. And they will say that you are wicked. Christians are often called wicked people. Why? Because the next one is they will falsely accuse you. They will falsely accuse you. In what sense? Now, the Christian back then, they were burnt on the stakes. They were falsely accused of causing social unrest. All right? Social unrest. You know, when you begin to change your life and refuse sin, especially sins that they say is fine, and then you say, no, that is not fine. We should not live like that. You may even live your own life like that, but they will say, you know, when you live your life like that, you are saying that we are wrong. You must change. You must say that that lifestyle is fine. You must accept that lifestyle. If you don't, then you are the one who's causing social problems. That is how it is. So back then, for them, when they say, no, we we should not get drunk anymore. We should not drink wine anymore. You say, what are you trying to say? That we are wicked? How can you do that? And you know this, and they accuse Christians are turning the world upside down. They are creating their own society. They're creating their own way of life. And it is a threat to Rome, a threat to Caesar. They're saying that, Caesar's games of throwing people into the stadium and having animals eat them, that is wicked. No, that is revelry. That's sports. Now the Christian, just because you become Christian, you become so high and mighty and say these things are wrong. So understand that. They will falsely accuse you, call you names. Now because the way we live, they will even call us, they were called back then, they are affecting society. Means you're not sociable. Why are you not coming to these games? Why are you not going to these parties? Why are you not participating in these activities? You are causing social unrest. That is what they were accused of back then. They will be the same today. Isn't it the same? When you don't partake in these things in the office, they call you party pooper. You spoil the party. I remember when I refused to partake in ballroom dancing with another woman that the company hires for us at so-called high flyers event. My boss was very angry. He came out like that, walking very fiercely towards me. Say, I expect all the vice presidents to be dancing. Why are you not there? Why are you spoiling the occasion? You spoil the mood of the whole occasion. You see? That's what it is. That's what it's going to be when you don't run with them. This will happen. Peter says, please know this, it will happen. They will not only think you strange, they will speak evil of you. They will attack you with words, with actions. So you're not civil. You're not civil. All right? You're not being gracious to others. You are the cause of wars in this world. Right? Just because Christians, you believe in these things, now there are wars. So we're accused of many things. Yes, there are people who misuse the name of Christianity to go to war, true. But that is not true Christianity. Now understand this. When you try to be honest at work, right? They will see you, they will speak evil of you. All because of this guy comes in on time, right? Works so hard. It exposes our laziness, right, in their minds. So honest. Does his job so seriously. False accusations. It is wrong to accuse you of that. So when you don't run with them, when they have their lusts and they spend their time all like that at work, and you don't participate in it, they're all wasting time, and then you work, they will accuse you, right? Because of that, we expose their sin. Now, what about the church? So just some examples. What about the church? The church. Why is your church so backward, right? Sing hymns, so boring, right? So strict, practice biblical separation. They will accuse you. Shouldn't we be kind, loving to all and every Christian? Why do you practice biblical separation? Why do you point out names of organizations and pastors that teach false doctrines? Right? They will attack. They not. Now, the saddest and most difficult thing is when it is from Christians. You see, this persecution in our lives, is one of the most difficult to accept when it comes from within the family, comes from Christians. Isn't it true? It is the most difficult to bear when it comes from that. We see increasingly so. Christians, when they try to live according to the ways of God and stop pursuing the things that you used to pursue. Now, I hope no Christian parent here will persecute your child. Why are you going to church? Why don't you spend your time studying instead? Well, of course, if your child is using church as an excuse, then that's different. Now, in Matthew chapter 10, God says very clearly, "Think not that I am come to send peace on earth. I came not to send peace, but a sword." So the Christian must accept that there will come a point of time in your Christian walk where even Christians, even your own family members, they may actually be the ones that speak evil of you, that think you strange. Now God says, For I am come to set a man at variance against his father, and the daughter against his mother, and the daughter-in-law against his mother-in-law. And a man's foes shall be they of his own household. I think to be thought of as strange and to be blasphemed, to be spoken evil of, is probably the most difficult after you become a Christian and you are among relatives, among family members, even among Christians. But here is the warning. Peter says, expect it. It will be there. It will come. Christ himself said, this will be so. And then he warns, he that loveth father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. And he that loveth son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. It is the same. I've known of Christian children getting very mad at Christian parents for being serious about the faith. Why are you always going for prayer meeting? Why don't you come and spend time with us instead and help me look after my child? Right? So as we live godly lives, this will happen. So how will they see us? How will they view us? That. Now, question number 3. Now, quickly. Why will the world think that we are strange and speak evil of us? What must I realize and check regarding myself? Why do they think like that? Why? Well, simple. They are not saved. They are unconverted. Because they are unconverted, righteous and holy is often wrong to them. They will call good evil, evil good. You must be ready, or rather, you must not be surprised. Now, in fact, if you look further down, all right, in chapter 4, look at verse 12. Chapter 4, verse 12. Beloved, think it not strange concerning the fiery trial which is to try you. The same word, strange, all right? Think it not strange. So as much as these things may seem odd to them, you must not think it is odd that they will think like that. They are unbelievers. Or they are Christians, they are professing Christians, they are not saved. That's why they cannot understand why you want to live holy lives. Now the next is, then we say, what must I realize and check regarding myself? You must ask, am I really saved? Now if God's works say, after salvation, they will think you strange. But if they don't think you strange, now I'm not saying please go out and be very odd and strange, all right? But if your life is not lived in a way where they will look at you and they say, why are you like that? You have to ask, have my life changed? Because they find that you still run with them. You go to parties, those kind of parties with them. You are still having the same lust as them. You spend your time, your money like them. No change. Now you find that that is the case. You have to ask yourself, well, either you are compromising and you're too ashamed of your faith, But if secretly in you, really, I don't think we need to be like that, you have to ask, how come there is no change? Because salvation is by grace. But don't think that just because salvation is by grace, then there is no change that comes. Salvation by grace transforms a person. You must understand that. If there's no transformation, you can keep saying salvation is by grace, and therefore I live my life the same way. I don't need to change because works don't save me. Yes, works don't save you, but there is no transformation. Then the salvation by grace is not genuine in your life. I say again, I'm not saying that now please go and cut your hair strange, wear very odd clothes just to be different. Dress normally, dress properly. Don't dress immodestly, that's what God says. Be normal, all right? So some Christians think that if I'm not being treated as strange, there's something wrong. So they try to be as strange as possible in the way they act, they speak. You bring shame to God's name instead, all right? Don't try to be that kind of Christian. There must be such a change in your life that unbelievers will actually feel uncomfortable around you, in the sense of they will feel that you have changed. You are different from whom they used to know. Now, next one, question number 4. All right, quickly. Question number 4. What are some examples of areas that they will think you or the church is strange? What are some examples? Now we come to the examples. We understand what these words mean. Now let's look at some examples in life. What are they? Speech is one. Your speech. You no longer use the language, especially the vulgar languages, the dual meaning languages. You no longer talk like them. Have your speech changed. You must be conscious. You no longer criticize your boss, the government. Because remember, just before this, Peter talked about submit to governors. As on to submit to governors, submit to your masters, right? So because now you're a believer, you say, I must submit to them. Whatever that is not sinful, God has put them as authorities over me. You don't criticize them anymore. So when they hang around and complain about the company, complain about things, or even complain about church among Christians, you don't participate with that. You've changed, right? Next, well, we've mentioned your dressing, right? Your speech, your dressing changes. You no longer feel comfortable. Just as you no longer can ever bring yourself to say vulgar words, you also no longer can bring yourself to dress immodestly. Now that is why God warns. These people around you, they are lascivious. Now if you continue to run with them, your standard of speech, your standard of dressing will be influenced by them. So he said, don't run with them. Don't spend the rest of your time with them anymore, because they will influence you. Now then, your dressing. Now recently I read an article about some young people. They were graduating from university, from high school or something. And one of them said this, all right, so the photographs which you don't want your child to be dressed in. And then one of the girls said, well, is my night to be Cinderella, right? Means this is one time in my life where I can dress, I can be outlandish, I can be one night to be that special moment where I will be the star or something like that. That's what they meant. This one night where I'll be Cinderella. Christians, do you have those thoughts? Well, normally I dress conservatively. And I've mentioned this many times. Somehow, in many Christian weddings, the wedding day is very immodest. At other times, you can't even imagine that this person would dress like that. And then the bridesmaid, the same. It's a one time I can show off my body, show off that I can also be very attractive, so to speak, like the world, that one day, one night. Now, Christian, God says, don't run like them. Even if there's one occasion, just one occasion in your life, do not be like them. So parents, if your children are going for high school graduation and all that kind of things, you better know whether there is going to be booze, drinking, banqueting, revelry, that kind of thing. Graduation is not sinful, but you better know what they're doing, what they're in for, what time, what to do, what clothes they want to buy. It's very sad to see Christians actually parade their children, their teenagers, in very immodest clothes, take photographs and post on their Facebook. And they feel very proud about it. That is how far gone Christianity is. But God here says, now please don't run with them. They walked in lasciviousness. My children, do not be like them. All right? So dressing, speech. Now, some activities, gambling, playing cards, mahjong games. You have gatherings with relatives or friends, and you used to sit with them and play. Then suddenly they say, hey, come, we need one more person. What are you going to do? These are very real. God says, well, if you join them, they won't think you strange. If you join them, they are not going to speak evil of you, right? As I mentioned, dinner and dances, company gatherings. I'm not saying company gatherings are all sinful and should never attend a company gatherings, but you must be prepared when to leave, when to no longer be part of the activity, all right? No matter what level I was in, I just have to resolve in my heart. When it comes to the part where everybody starts dancing and all that, I've done my part. I don't need to be there. I leave. Be very careful. Don't make that wrong mistake of just letting loose for one night. Don't. I think I've shared this with you before. I had a Christian colleague, a married woman, which outwardly very conservative, from hair to dressing, speech, and I always respected her. I thought she's a conservative Christian. And then we were on a company cruise on board a boat, on board a ship. And then there comes the event is over, and then there comes the drinking and the partying and the dancing part. Now, before that, there was a stranger, all right? It's a public ship. A stranger that kept approaching her, kept trying to get her attention, all right? A stranger. And she kept resisting. Initially, I said, well, of course a Christian woman would do that, right? She's married as well. Keep offering her drinks. Then she relented, right? Probably not wanting to be thought of strange, spoken evil of. So she accepted a drink, just one drink. She started to let her hair down, literally, Her hair was tied up. So literally this lasciviousness is wantonness. Let her hair, she lit it and her hair came down. She loosened up. He kept asking her to dance with her. She would not initially. But very soon, she relented. Well, it's just once a lifetime, my company party. She danced with him. And his hands were all over her. And then she started to move in very seductive ways. on the dance floor. Everybody was looking. Of course, lots of people were cheering. I was about to leave, and I was really just so pained in my heart. The whole testimony is gone. No one thinks her strange anymore. They applauded her. Yes, you must let your hair down. That is what it should be. It's just a dance, right? Now, Peter did not write these things, and God did not record these things to warn the Christian for nothing. These pressures will come. These tauntings will come. These temptings will come. So be careful. Be very cautious. Now, then the next one. What about school, right, parents? The activities that your children participate in, dances, performances, what music they will perform. Now, you have to be careful. God says the world, the unbelievers, they live in lasciviousness. They live in lust. They live in abominable idolatries. Be aware of that. Do some research. Be careful. These things are all around your children. I remember seeing a child who's quite talented in playing the piano. School performance time. Well, I do not know whether the child chose that piece or the parent chose, or the school chose that piece. And the parent was very proud of the child performing. And I think the child really could play very well. So videoed her on the stage playing and all that. And when it started, and the parents started to send to other Christians, right? And then I received it. I saw them, hey, hang on, that piece of music. Now, probably the piece by itself is not that bad, but it is pop music basically, all right? So parents, be careful. That lascivious, but it was famous because it was from a movie. You know that werewolf movie. I don't know what you call it. Wolves and all that. Men turning into wolves, women turning into wolves. That can't remember what's the name. But that was what made that piece famous. And the child was on the stage playing. Now the world is lascivious. The world is full of lust, full of these wicked, dark idolatries. Be careful. All right. Some examples. Do your research. Now, what else? Yes, I've mentioned gatherings with relatives. Now, this is one of the difficult ones. You get saved, they don't know that you got saved. Then you turn up at New Year gatherings, dinner gatherings, and all of a sudden, you don't drink, you don't eat food offered to idols, you don't. And then they sit, and then after they say, everyone gather around and watch a movie, right? Or serial, or whatever. And then here you are, a single, all right? Or married, or with your family, very uncomfortable. What are you going to do? Now, all these things, Peter is saying, this will swirl around you. And he warns, do not run with them. And when you do so, when you don't run with them, they will think you strange. It's going to happen. What are you going to do? Now, I witness this, and sometimes it's difficult, more difficult when it's Christian homes. I witnessed this church person it was a church gathering, right? He brought the children, and his parent tried to keep the children away from all these Pokemons and all these violent cartoons, Transformers and all that kind of thing. The parents worked very hard to get the child not to be interested in this thing and get the child interested more in Bible stories, Christian things, all right? But in this Christian home, the children were there playing with violent computer games. Another screen was this kind of cartoons and all that. But sometimes Christians will think you strange. Other Christian parents will think you strange when you try to keep your children away from those things, right? How difficult is it? The Christian walk. They will think, why are you so extreme? It's just It's just cartoon. It's just a kid. They don't understand. They think you're strange. They will think you're strange. And another thing is, well, your children, they are so intelligent. They could do so much better in school. You see, they're full of lust. Why do you keep bringing them to church? Why do you keep making them take FEBC courses? Why do you waste your time on those things? Your child could be so much better. You see the difficulties? You don't get whipped. You don't get crucified like the Christians then. But Peter said, you will have also another kind of challenge even back then, even now. How will you respond? Well, other examples. How you spend your money. Well, after you become a Christian, or now along the way you realize that you need to tithe, right? Then you realize, and then you change your spending habits. Relatives may not understand. Friends may think it's strange. You used to spend money like that. You used to buy things like that. Hey, why are you downsizing? Why? You see, when the Christian begin to obey the Lord, changes happen in your choices. Maybe you downsize because you change job. That job is just wrong for the Christian. And then your friends wonder, right? You used to live a certain standard. Why is it different now? And then they bump into you. You eat in lower class. You eat with us in a food court, right? When you used to only eat in high-class restaurants, then they will begin to snigger, talk about you, right? How will it be? Well, wives, you go out with your friends, right? You say, well, gathering, it's a good gospel opportunity. And then they see the way you come, and they say, well, not in branded stuff, not in expensive clothes. Then they ask, what handbag do you carry? And then you carry Woolworths paper, plastic, cloth bag, right? To carry your things there. While they are carrying all their expensive branded thing. And then they'll snigger. They cannot understand. Why would you spend your money on those things? What's wrong? It's normal. It's very abnormal how you're living. It's embarrassing how you're living, right? They do not understand. Will you be ashamed? Now, I'm not saying that you can only carry Woolworth paper bags, cloth bags, all right? But what I'm trying to point out is, yeah, they will begin to look at you, what you wear, what you buy, how you spend your money. You used to go to movie houses with them. You used to go to all these places. No longer. Now, what about church? I mentioned just now, hymns. Are you embarrassed? Bring people to church. We sing hymns. Sermons. To them, even Christians, sermons should be 10 minutes. That's it. And sermons should entertain me. Sermons should be about me. Sermons should uplift me that God loves me and He wants to give me everything. Church, someone said that church cannot be too churchy. Cannot be too churchy. Must not be so churchy, right? Must dress down, and the pastor also dress down and very casual. And then people don't have to be so serious. I told you before, right? The person who came to hang these lights for us, then he told me, Pastor Joseph, your church, the lights. Because asking him for advice how to light up our new sanctuary. You see, your lights this place looks like a hospital, It must be only bright at the pulpit, then different colors, then very dark in the congregation, basically like a performance hall, right? So to them, our church is too churchy. See, these things will happen to us. Are we going to change? Are we going to be embarrassed and say, well, let's change? All right, so some examples. You can think of more for your own. Question number 5. How should I think and respond? Now, how should I think and respond? When the world thinks that I and my church are strange. So how? Well, Peter gives us solutions. Well, first and foremost. Now, what is Peter trying to do in verse 5 and 6? Let's read verse 5 and 6 together. Who shall judge? Who shall give account to him that is ready to judge the quick and the dead? For this cause was the gospel preached also to them that are dead, that they might also be judged according to men in the flesh, but live according to God in the Spirit. Now, next week, am I with you all? All right. Next week, I'm with you all. All right, we'll continue next week. What is the solution? How should we think? What is the solution that God gives to stir us, to help us through this difficult kind of emotional persecution? Let us pray. What do we have here? Top 5 reasons why church dropouts, what church dropouts say, why they stop attending church. Now, please remember 66% of, well, I take the American view, they're the most readily available results. They stop attending church at least a year after turning 18. So from